Hey guys, it's me, Sam Stein, managing editor at the Bulwark, and I'm joined by Tim Miller. Always want to get a little Tim Miller on Monday, start the week off right. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump's press conference, which concluded earlier this morning. But before we get into that, subscribe to the feed. All right, Tim, look, the press conference was an out-of-body experience to some degree because here you have a Republican president, Freudian slip, Republican president next to RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz talking about price controls for prescription drugs and talking about, alluding to direct negotiations with Qatar to release a hostage, apparently going over the head of the Israeli leadership. You have RFK Jr. saying, look, this is Bernie Sanders' dream, and my Bernie Sanders supporting kids were reduced to tears. They were so happy to hear what Trump was doing. So I felt like I was in HuffPost 2007. I was about to write a joyous article about everything that was going on.
Well, I mean, you were probably an Islamo-fascist back then too. Because it's hard.
We're going back then.
Yeah, we're going back and forth during this press conference over, is this a Islamic kleptocracy petrostate that we're running, or are we like a Northern European democratic socialist?
Why not
both?
Not
democratic socialist, I guess, because Congress didn't actually do this. We did this by decree. So, kind of a soft authoritarian socialism, or maybe a Islamo-fascist state.
It's the best of both.
It's the best of both and the worst of both at the same time. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is what John Thune is for now, and Mike Johnson. I guess the party has just totally accepted this. We're just doing price controls. We're doing deals with the people that are funding the Hamas protests. Like it's fine for us just to take $400 million bribes from countries that are allied with Iran. I guess that's what's happening now. The interesting thing about it is they're unapologetic about this, right? Like Trump was not. There was maybe maybe I'm overstating it. I noticed a little bit of a slight, kind of like the body language doctor when RFK was like, this was central to Bernie's agenda.
Trump the fulcrum. I think he said the fulcrum.
Trump did kind of like adjust his body a little bit. And so I don't know if that's just kind of old man being tired standing or whether there's something uncomfortable about that. But, I mean, that is like where these guys landed. I think it's important to note that regardless of what, and this is an area where there are a variety of views on the Bulwark Slack, regardless of what your views are about price controls for pharmaceutical drugs, this is not something that a president can do by fiat. There's certain things you can do with the negotiations of prices over like government healthcare, Medicaid or Medicare, whatever, though there are real rules around that. And so like some of this is just, I just think it's important to contextualize this by saying like they want this to be free PR for them. That's like they are unilaterally reducing pharmaceutical prices, and that's not exactly how the world works as in our teetering liberal democracy.
Yeah, I'm gonna do just to preview. I'll be talking to Jonathan Cohn about the specifics here about this deal because, as Cohn wrote, I mean, they tried something of a smaller version of this in Trump 1.0, and it got shut down because they shockingly didn't follow the proper rulemaking processes, and the courts were like, no, you can't just do this. This time around, if you read the exact language of the executive order, it's actually not as far-reaching as you would have thought, given the sort of boasting that was happening on social media. But it gets to a larger point, and I'm actually curious for your take on this, which is, I think there's way more division within the Republican ranks than gets appreciated right now, because there is actually legislation from Josh Hawley to do some version of, reducing pharmaceutical costs. And Josh Hawley also is out there with an op-ed in the New York Times saying, do not touch Medicaid. Like this is what our people depend on. Josh Hawley seems like he's doing a lot of kind of interesting unorthodox stuff. What's your take on how widespread that sentiment is in the party?
I think that if we survive the next 4 years and somehow end up in a place where there's like back to some normal political competition, where there's not kind of an overhang of a cult-like leader leading the party, I think it's going to be a very interesting debate. I always look to say what you want about Bannon, but my view has always been that if you look at it, if there's a policy debate between Bannon and the National Review Online, Bannon has pretty much every time been more in line with where actual rank and file Republican voters are than the National Review, the more traditional type of whatever you want to call it, classical Republican view. And so in this case, the Bannon-Hawley view of being less interested in cuts to social services, at least quasi-curious in some tax hikes, but the a little bit kind of fake. They really want tax hikes on like one certain class of people, which is like rich salaried people.
They want the people. They want carried interest, right? Or is that
not like not really corporations, but still.
Sure.
So I think that there's something that is interesting about that. You have to, though, in the current world we're in, right, which is like this kind of rhetorical stuff is happening, while the actual people that are still in charge of legislation on the Hill are going to jam through a massive tax cut for rich people.
And Trump
where Trump wants to do handouts for corporate, any billionaire that wants to do him a favor, he'll do favors for back, right? So those two things are in tension, right? Like the actual lit policy that's happening now with kind of the very slow trajectory towards something a little bit different.
Right. Now, you mentioned it, so we'll play the clip. But RFK Jr. got up there and was talking about, no one has been more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than Trump. Let's play the video, and then we can get to it.
There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people.
All right, so this one sort of like tickled me a little bit, because that's just, we could go through the list. Like what are we talking about? Like if you're big pocketed donor with access to Trump, more likely than not, you're going to get your way. Just look at what happened with TikTok. So obviously it's bullshit, but it's just kind of funny to see it play out in public like that.
Yeah, I think that RFK is like narrowly thinking about his lane, right? Which is like the big medical companies and all that. And like it is true, I guess, that Trump more so than like Mitt Romney was going to, you're not going to see Mitt Romney doing something that the pharma lobby is hostile to.
No, pharma never lost before until the last couple presidencies.
So there is something to be said for that. But it's like, this is kind of like, what is the definition of oligarch, right? You know what I mean? If like your definition of oligarch is like DC lobbyists and university presidents, like Trump has been pretty
Trump
hostile.
has really given them the fucking finger. But if it's Tim Cook.
But if it's like the richest people in the world, or by the way, aspiring MAGA aligned DC lobbyists who are crushing it right now, or like a different category of DC lobbyists, right? Or the richest people in the world, like Trump, or the richest oil baron families in the world, Middle Eastern oil baron families, like you're doing quite well under Trump. And so I think that RFK is trying to like do a cute rhetorical thing to push back.
And he also knows that he knows it's a Trump talking point that he can't be bought, and so he just wants to mimic it. And so he gets up there and he has to say what he has to say. Perhaps it's the water from Rock Creek where he was swimming yesterday that's got the brainworms reactivated. Last thing is the Qatar jet.
Have you ever thought about jumping in the water at Rock Creek?
I've gone in the water in Rock Creek. Not during the time when there was an advisory not to swim in the water.
Even at the non-advisory times.
And not with my jeans on. No, it's nasty water. I'm not first of all, I'm not like diving in there and like doing laps. I'm like skipping stones with my kid. But like I'm not going in there with jeans, first of all. I thought that was the weirdest part. Like who swims with jeans? But like also the bacteria levels are pretty bad right now. Putting that aside, the $400 million jet or plane, he gets up there and he's like, this is you losers who wouldn't accept this thing. Like, obviously I'm going to take it. Like, this is what you do. And I think he has some thing about Sam Snead. We can play that.
That's
why
why
you have to. Yeah.
What do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
Only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us. I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. There was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear of him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Respectfully, sir, as a
All right, so if you got a gimme, if you're giving a putt, you're giving a gimme. I don't know if anyone's a golfer out there. Usually it's like within 2 feet. They say, yeah, you can take it. You don't have to hit it in. He says, you take the gimme. And on that front, I actually do agree. But I don't think that's the actual analogy here.
You don't think this is a gimme? You don't think
No.
taking a $400 million bribe from a country that was also funding the Palestine protests that we are, I guess, if you are a participant in the Palestine protest
Right.
and you're on a student visa, America's policy is that we're going to jail you without due process. It's the current Trump administration's policy. If you are a funder of those protests and a funder of Hamas itself, and you want to give a bribe to the president of the United States,
It's a
the
gimme.
attorney general says that not only is that a gimme, the attorney general is like, yes, great.
Well, the attorney general did lobby on behalf of the same
yeah,
exact country like a year ago. So
I think this is just as a meta topic about the conversation around Trump. I think this is a good example of like, you can't have a hard and fast rule over how to like deal with crazy stuff, right? Because like, sometimes like, oh, don't chase this thing because it's like not actually going to happen. Like this was one of those, right? Or this thing comes out, John Carlson comes out and people are like, okay, I mean, this is really going to happen. We're going to like the president's going to be on Cutter's plane. And then, there's some pushback on it. And then Trump is just like, no, this is happening. Not only is it happening, it's like a gimme.
That was the best part when all the MAGA accounts were like, you fools.
Yeah.
Once again, deranged media, making shit up. And then Trump just is like, actually.
Yes,
yeah,
this is actually happening.
You're the fools. I'm taking this shit.
It's true. Have you seen the origin story of how this really actually came to be? This is my favorite little anecdote.
Oh, no, because I had speculation. But what is this?
The Qatari, well, I guess, I wonder if it was maybe for the golf tournament. I haven't seen what they were over there, but the plane, the Air Palace that we're taking was parked at the West Palm Beach FBO.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. And Trump they asked Trump to tour, like he was like wanted to tour it. So they gave him a tour of it back in February when they happened to be at Florida. I guess I don't know if they're at the FBO for Mar-a-Lago or for one of the golf tournaments. And
it's like a bad episode of Homeland.
Yeah, and it's like this is pretty nice here. I'm liking the gold toilet. I'm liking the furnishings around.
Put in
here.
extra gold. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got fully reclined seats.
And so he just liked it a lot, and that was it.
Yeah, I guess that's how the conversation got started, and here we are. I mean, that was the.
This is just this reminds me that Sam Snead story where he's sitting over putt.
It's also kind of a little bit of an ancient golf reference, I should mention. Not exactly a culturally
but that's
not
Trump.
like Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, no, that's Trump though. He likes the oldies. Jack, Sam, whatever. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you walking through another one of these press conferences. One a day. No, he's going overseas now, so we might be actually the press conferences will still happen just at odd hours. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate that too. Subscribe to the feed, and we'll talk to you later.